You know what they say about revenge? That if one seeks it out, they might as well dig 2 graves. This is something V has the option of trying to express to Claire Russell. But this is Night City. Things are messy and harsh in the world of cyberpunk in general, but especially so in this place known for its lack of happy endings. But with Claire, I like to hold up some degree of hope that over time she can let go of her grief and learn to forgive herself. Not just for the tragic death of her husband, but for her own life going on without the man she so deeply loved. Hey yo, it's Liddy, and welcome to Shaped by Stories, where we unpack how characters shape stories and how stories shape us. Let's get into it. Claire Russell, before her bartending days, worked as an engineer for Militech. She knows engines inside out, and by time V meets her, she spends most of her free time in her garage. Around 15 years before meeting V, Claire was close friends with a man named Dean Russell, a fellow Militech techie. When Claire had her gender transition, Dean was a pillar of support for her, visiting her in the hospital as often as he could, and even bringing her flowers. Specifically, daffodils. To new beginnings, Dean told her. Before I get into the language of the flowers, being transgender is treated so normally in Cyberpunk. The way that Claire mentions her transition is just so casual, and the way that V reacts to it is just so. Cyberpunk is a heavily transhumanist genre where it's the societal norm to modify your body however you see fit, to present yourself however you want. Mike Pondsmith, when it comes to his cyberpunk universe, has gone on record saying that he was running games with trans characters even back in the 80s, as he had a number of gender-diverse friends. They were never an afterthought for him. Transgender people and gender-diverse people have always existed in the world of cyberpunk, and they've always had a presence in this world. And them being trans as well wasn't something that carried the same kind of danger that it does in our world. Like, yeah, the cyberpunk world is still dangerous as shit, especially in Night City. Like, it's not a great place for anybody, but it's just cool that the cyberpunk tabletop was ahead of its time. While it would have been cool to see more trans characters with fascinating stories in Cyberpunk 2077, hopefully in the sequel, I find Claire to be a really interesting character. She's got flaws, she's got charm, she has a lot of depth to her. I find her questline is very misunderstood, but I will say my complaint about her story is that it's not longer, and I'll get into what I mean by that in a minute. But back to daffodils and the language of flowers. The language of flowers, as many of us may know it, stems, from its revival in Victorian England. Originally, the language of flowers was from the Ottoman court, present there since the 14th century. Basically, this symbolic language was used to help nobility express feelings that weren't otherwise appropriate to address or express outwardly. Talking about a flower could have a double meaning. A bouquet could have a whole deeper story to it than just the flowers you're looking at. Daffodils have a wide range of meaning in the language of flowers, varying from culture to culture, but the primary meanings for daffodils are renewal, rebirth, and even feminine power, all of which are incredibly lovely and thoughtful. Like, Dean, you can tell Dean really did care about Claire. But there's also a more unsettling meaning to daffodils, and that is that they can spell misfortune. Claire and Dean fell in love, and they were married for 12 years. That is a crazy long marriage in Night City, or at least it is when you consider how many couples have one of their people getting flatlined. Claire describes her husband as a sweet man. Claire also says that Dean would joke about getting her to get her first cyberware implant for their 15th anniversary. Which is because Claire is one of those rare people who is completely Ganic. She has zero cyberware. Claire can tell V that while she loves machines and tinkering with them, she never wants to become one herself. I really like that we get to meet someone with that sort of philosophical take on the whole putting metal in your body thing. It's easy to kind of forget how crazy cyberware is when you get really absorbed in the gameplay norm of everybody's chipping in, like, who isn't? Claire left Militech at some point, going to work as the bartender of the Afterlife. Claire had more than a memory for just drink orders, though. Rogue trusted Claire to get all the relevant information she could from patrons. It was a lot of work, but considering how many years Claire has worked for Rogue, it's gotta be a pretty decent gig. I'm hoping Claire makes some good bank. Bar and restaurant workers put up with a lot, so I imagine Claire does too. Dean, meanwhile, continued to work for Militech, at least until he was, apparently, fired. Dean and Claire, in their spare time, shared a passion for street racing, specifically in death races. I actually think Falco from Edgerunners took part in these death races too, prior to the events of Edgerunners. Fun fact, Claire also has a cameo appearance in Edgerunners, which takes place, I think, in 2076? While Claire was the gunner in these death races, Dean drove their trademark car, the Beast, and he was apparently an excellent driver. The husband and wife duo would make good time in loads of races, but if we are to believe Samson, Claire and Dean did flatline a number of people in the process. That was allowed, as these were death races. Death races means exactly what you think it does. Pretty much anything goes in these street races, and considering how my V got away with self-destructing half the cars in each race, yeah, no, it seems like it's true. There's a picture in Claire's garage in 2077 of her and Dean on top of the dam in Rancho Coronado. For all we know, this could be right after their second last race together, the year before. And, like, I know it's just a picture, that there's so much we don't know about Dean, but he and Claire look so happy together here. Like, they nailed it, putting that happy glow in Claire's eyes, and Dean looks so happy too, and it's just like, oh my god. It melts my heart. But then, you know, you see that goddamn villain and all the stories where a couple falls apart, someone dies, or something bad happens. It's that character we all love to hate. It's Night City, reminding us how there's no happy endings, and I hate it. In 2076, Claire and Dean made it to the finals of the death race, the highway run. They were just behind Samson, a Militech corpo that Dean had worked with in the past, when Samson slammed on the brakes and crashed the Beast into Samson's car. Claire and Samson both survived, but Dean did not. While it's not really made super clear to us what went down between Samson and Dean, we can kind of piece together from conversations on the track in 2077, from emails on Claire's computer, and also from some things that Samson says, that Dean, despite being a sweet and caring husband to Claire, was hiding another layer of himself. Dean and Samson used to be friends from what I could understand, but something happened at Militech where Dean got the boot and Samson got the promotion. The details are kind of unclear, at least from what I could find. Dean definitely has it out for Samson just based on this one email we can find on Claire's computer, where Claire, in fact, tries to get Dean to step out of the race. This was the race that he would die in. Claire is worried that him driving when he's seeing red like this will be dangerous, and she is right. Claire says that Samson slammed on the brakes of his car, causing Dean to crash into him. She considered this premeditated murder rather than just, bad circumstances, as Samson had a clear first place win if he'd just kept going. She's also considering the tension between Samson and Dean going into this. Samson may have seen this as an opportunity to kick this guy while he was down, in the corpo way. But Samson argues that Dean's death was his own fault, that Dean was too reckless, that he lost control of the vehicle while he was trying to pass. This was a death race, so it's not like this was against the rules. Everybody knew what they were signing up for. It's hard to get a 100% clear picture of what happened in this crash, in this race. But let me bring up some other evidence that might make things a little more clearer in some ways. I overheard some conversations during the 2077 death races that give some more information about Dean and Samson. One involves a mention that Samson would hire Maelstrom to take out racing rivals.
Did you hear about that thing Pete Samson pulled last year?
Pete, how to succeed guru, I'm on the cover of Time, Samson. Talking about the final series, we?
Nah, first race. Little China, Kabuki, finish line in North Side.
Oh yeah, but Samson came second. Not bad, but not top.
Not how it played out. Samson hired Maelstrom thugs to zero the winners past the finish line. Put clever man Samson first in the end.
Which shows that he's not above some under-the-table tricks to win. Who knows what he was like working with at Militech? We don't know exactly what he did to Dean. The other thing I heard from some 6th Street guys who were talking about Dean in the Rancho race, they were saying that Dean put himself down and that he didn't know when to stop.
Russell wasn't put down. Russell put himself down. Didn't let up. Didn't know when to. Sure, he owed Matt $4,000. That had nothing to do with it. I mean, think. Dead man can't pay it back, can he? And Dean was looking for the prize money to settle his debt. You know, boom or bust. Wound up being the latter.
This guy says that Dean apparently had some debts to pay and that he would have paid with the prize money. Maybe Dean made a bad financial decision, but hid it from Claire. Maybe Samson screwing him over at work really hurt his ability to pay it off. Claire was already working at the Afterlife non-stop, and maybe Dean was ashamed at the idea of forcing that debt onto Claire if he couldn't make ends meet himself. And I also think that Claire knew that something was up long before Dean's death. There's an email where Dean says he can't come home, he has to work late, and Claire is definitely disappointed, but she does try to console him, to tell him it's okay and that she can't live without him, that she loves him. I'm of two minds with this email. One is that, okay, maybe Dean is working overtime, but he just can't admit to Claire why. But the thing that makes me go, is that Claire points out how convenient it is that they can't even hollow each other. So I'm kind of like, was he working with this guy named Mike? What was he doing? This is sus, and Claire knows it. And then Dean says he'll pay her when he gets back from this overtime work trip. So there's definitely some money being owed to Claire. But my question is, where did her money go that he now has to pay her back for? Maybe I'm missing another conversation. I will go and double check, but I don't know. There's a lot of things here. To me, it's very clear that Dean was hiding something, and I think Claire had her suspicions. Claire could see her husband was deeply upset by something. Perhaps Samson was just only the tip of the iceberg. She had that gut feeling that Dean was not in the right headspace to race. She tried to talk him down from competing, but he didn't listen. He brushed her off. He was willing to risk a lot. And Claire still went with her husband to the track that day. She still gunned for him. She loved him, and she would do whatever she needed to do to help him out. I think he was the same way with her too, and I kind of feel like he got into this potential debt mess to maybe do something for Claire, or to get some money to fund something for their future, or something like that. Which ultimately is why Claire was shattered by Dean's death. I do think Claire feels like she didn't do enough to stop her husband that day. She knew something was wrong with him, and she's devastated. She blames herself for not doing anything more than what she did. But the extra level of pain, I think, especially after Dean was probably laid to rest, is that maybe the debt got laid onto Claire. Maybe Claire found some papers or documents detailing some things that she didn't know about. She works the Afterlife too, and she hears all these stories from all of these mercs. Maybe she kept her ear open for something and what she heard was really hard for her to hear. Maybe Rogue found some information for her. Either way, even if she didn't have any solid proof that Dean was doing some stuff behind her back, I think it's a classic instance of, she knows. Claire's recollection of the accident could be very different from what Samson's is. There definitely seems to be some framing differences. Grief and emotion can also twist memories. Modern science has proved this. Eyewitness testimony is extremely shaky. That doesn't mean Claire doesn't believe what she saw is what she saw. That doesn't make her a liar. Not at all. But just based on the information there is about Dean, I don't think it's crazy to even present the possibility that Dean could have charged Samson with the beast for all we know, despite Claire being in the car with him. And the other thing too, if that is the way it happened, imagine how traumatic an experience that would be for Claire. Like, yeah, you would probably want to try to rewrite or reframe that event too if you were her, coupled especially with the major loss that she has just suffered. Which is why I think Claire then turned all her rage and all her grief, rage and grief she felt towards herself and towards even the man she loved, right back around onto Samson. By 2077, Claire is still a staple of the Afterlife. V meets her alongside Jackie right before they go to speak to Dexter Deshawn, where Claire memorizes the Jackie Wells, the drink that Jackie half-jokingly wanted to be made in his name as a Night City legend. Claire remembers Jackie when V returns after his death, and she adds the Jackie Wells to the menu, alongside other classics like the Johnny Silverhand. But Claire eventually reaches out to V, I think after you rescue Evelyn from the scavs, and she asks V to come and pay her a visit in her garage in Rancho. Why Claire reaches out to V for their driving skills, I'll never know. Maybe it's because Claire can tell, maybe she can tell my V's a vicious killer by the way she drives, with no respect for the lives of pedestrians. If Samson's crossing the street, he sure won't be crossing it for long. Claire poses to V that these races are just that. They're just races where anything goes, people can die, no ramifications, that's all. Sure, they're death races, but like, together, Claire and V could win them and split the prize money, right? She tells V that her last driver died, but she doesn't divulge any more information than that, not yet. Insofar as V knows, Claire is looking for someone to take part in this sport with her that Claire just enjoys doing, and she just needs someone to help her do it. And I will say, as buggy as these quests were for me, they were still quite fun. I was surprised at how much I enjoyed myself. Yes, I did blow up as many cars as I could with my Netrunner V. Yes, that didn't feel fair, but there's no rule against it. Claire wasn't bothered by my V doing any of that. I can understand why people might think she's a hypocrite for being mad that her husband died, but like, I think it's deeper than just him dying. I'll get into that later. The other thing too, though, that did happen after my first race with Claire, she dropped me off in front of her shop, but like, she kicked me out onto the sidewalk. She didn't even say goodbye. We didn't say goodbye. And then she ran the beast into me. So maybe she's got some subtle anger about my conduct. I don't know. As much as Claire loves it when we get first place, and as much as she seems to enjoy racing, she does eventually admit that she has been dishonest with V. This is during the third and second last race with her. She admits from the top of the dam of Rancho Coronado, the same place in that picture where she and Dean are smiling and all happy. She admits that she's not in this race to win, or to simply just have V drive her around. Claire wants to make it to the finals, because that is where she will cross paths with Samson, the winner of last year's finals, and where she will kill him. She will have her revenge, and V will help her do it. That is the real job. Samson took Dean, the man she loved with all her heart, away from her, and he needs to die, she says. You could definitely see this admission of dishonesty as Claire being misleading and manipulative. She actually admits this and apologizes for this in the best possible ending for this quest. But I don't think her hiding her true intentions from V is about V or anything like that. I think that it's because Claire knows that Dean wasn't murdered, or at least that his death wasn't such a black and white thing. I think Claire hasn't been able to process her husband's death because in order to do that, she needs to admit that A, his death is not her fault, she did everything she could to stop him, and B, she also needs to admit that Dean was hiding a side of himself from her. The death race being a death race is Like, sure, one has to acknowledge that there's a reason why the race is called that. Dean and Claire knew what they were getting into before they signed up. But I ultimately don't think that Claire's anger is about Dean getting killed so much as it is about, you know, all the ugly truths and the pain of her loss that she is having a lot of trouble facing. A lot of things floated to the surface with his death, and it's really hard for her to accept the arguable culpability in how his end came about. Samson is just a flimsy barrier between Claire and the truth, and a barrier between her and grieving. And no matter how you choose to handle Samson in the final quest, he ceases to be that shield. Claire is forced to face the reality of Dean's loss and the truth that she's been really trying to avoid seeing. But definitely how you choose to talk to Claire about her desire to kill Samson, about her belief that Samson murdered her husband, is very important. Even if it doesn't really seem that way. I have to say, I honestly think that this admission should have come after a proper side quest that didn't have a race. Like, just one other quest that we could have done with Claire. Maybe the beast got stolen and we had to go get it. Maybe someone broke into Claire's garage. I don't know, just something. I feel like we should have had a deeper quest to really get to know Claire, and also maybe learn some things about Dean that would have led up to a similar admission to what we get at the end of the Rancho race. I don't know, it just feels like there needs to be just a little something more with Claire. My point is, anyway, with the Rancho admission, Claire having hidden this truth from V shows that she has her own doubts. She's not as sure of her view of this situation as she tries to present, and I love that sort of subtlety of it. She hid this desire for revenge because she knows, deep down, it stands on shaky ground, well beyond the death race being a death race. V can be on board with this revenge plan, which just leads to Claire executing Samson in the final mission, but V can say to Claire that Samson's death isn't a priority for them. This was advertised to V as a racing partnership, and V still sees it that way. Claire is respectful of that, and she owns up to the fact that she dragged V into this under false pretenses. V can quit this questline now, but why would you want to do that? We gotta finish the story. Before the final race begins, Samson definitely shows his assholery. He basically insults Dean's memory to Claire's face, which, even if what he's saying may be true, it is super shitty. Like, dude, seriously. I haven't even mentioned this yet either, but you can also find a list of stuff that Samson said in published magazines. Claire has this list in her garage. This not only shows her sort of obsession with taking this guy out, but it also shows that Samson is indeed gross beyond just hiring mercs to take out competitors after they'd crossed the finish line. During the final race, Samson and V go neck and neck. But as they near the finish line, Samson's car explodes. It's probably from Claire's gunfire, but part of me was also wondering if it was from another sort of malfunction, maybe? Like, maybe that malfunction is what caused him to stop so suddenly in the race that killed Dean? I do think Claire's point about him having a clear line to the finish to get first place is noteworthy. Samson seems like he would just want to win no matter what. It doesn't make sense, at least to me, that he would just decide to brake check Dean. I could be wrong, but like, wouldn't he just hire Maelstrom to take Dean out so then he can just be first anyway? Like, I don't know. That part is definitely a little fuzzy. Samson manages to pull off the highway, and V has the choice to follow. V can just keep going and finish the race. This makes Claire basically blacklist you, and she's really pissed, and she refuses to serve you at the Afterlife. This doesn't really solve anything, you just win money. The other choice is that we break away from the race and follow Samson until he crashes on a sidewalk in Watson. As Samson crawls out from the wreckage, Claire approaches him with her gun drawn. She taunts him. But I think it's important to note that even now you can see that Claire has doubts. I think if she was sure of her desire to flatline Samson, she'd have done it before V could get a word in edgewise. Samson is begging Claire for his life, just trying to tell her that her husband was not the man she thought he was. And I think Claire really struggles with that, not because it's just a generally hard thing to hear about someone you love, but because she knew this. Samson was echoing her doubts right back at her, and I don't think he's lying, personally. Like, if one was to lie to try and, like, beg for their life, I feel like that is not the approach to take, insulting Claire's dead spouse. Even if V doesn't interfere and lets Claire kill him, she kind of does it haphazardly. I think she's already regretting what she's done. But should V interfere, Samson will tell V that he didn't murder Dean, or at least that's how he sees it. First, yes, it was a death race, but Dean wasn't just an innocent bystander killed in cold blood. Samson claims that Dean was trying to pass him, but lost control. Claire still says that Samson rammed them, which isn't denied, but the circumstances are getting even cloudier here. Again, I don't think Claire is lying about her story of what happened. I think she's severely traumatized and grieving. And her killing Samson, as gross as he is, won't fix anything. If anything, it'll be another layer of guilt and regret for Claire to deal with. I wouldn't argue sparing Samson for Samson's sake, I'd argue it for Claire's. Claire inevitably has to face the truth and her grief at the end of this quest. But as V, we can stop her from doing something that she will regret for maybe the rest of her life. That she's already hesitating instead of just pulling the trigger shows that revenge is not the right course of action for Claire. Whether we succeed in convincing Claire to spare Samson or not, she leaves the crash site in a daze. She's very detached, or at least that's what I felt like. Like, she's cold, she's exhausted, and I think that this is the full-blown weight of Dean's loss really hitting her. Claire says to V relatively coldly that she just needed V for driving. And I've seen a lot of people say that this made them feel used, and I can understand why. I personally didn't really feel that way. I just think her flat tone and delivery of that line was more because Claire is in shock. Like, Claire is not well right here. She's not happy. She says she doesn't really feel anything. And I'm honestly disappointed that V can't comfort her more. Claire says that she fears forgetting her husband. She only really says, when V asks what he was like, that Dean liked to sleep in. And right after, she's like, I'm forgetting everything else about him already, and it's only been a year. Claire still has to process the fact that she is still here and that Dean is not, especially now that she has let go of her drive for revenge, that last fiery connection with Dean. If you let her flatline Samson, she texts you and says she's sorry for dragging you into everything, but she also says that she feels guilty for what happened with Samson. But should she spare Samson? She apologizes for manipulating you. She recognizes that that's what it was. She admits that she was not well. She's not mentally in the greatest place, and it's hard to not understand why. But Claire is grateful that V was there to stop her from making a mistake. Ultimately, Claire gives up racing. She bestows the beast upon V to wreak havoc upon the unfortunate pedestrians of Night City. Racing was for her and Dean. This was something special they shared and they loved to do together. But with Dean gone, so is Claire's joy for racing. But this isn't necessarily a sad thing. Who knows what the future holds? While we can't be certain of whether good things or bad things will come Claire's way, this is Night City after all, I think in this more hopeful ending for Claire, in this new beginning for her, Claire will learn to forgive the most important person of all. The person Dean would probably want her to care for above all others. Herself. Thank you for watching the Claire video. This is one of my most requested ones, and it's been a long time coming. It's been in the books for a while now. I'd actually never totally done Claire's quests before. I love her jumpsuit and her hair, and I had a mod once that gave me her hair, but now the mod doesn't work with the game, and I'm too dumb to figure out how to mod Cyberpunk successfully. One of these days I'll try it again. But yeah, Claire has the best jumpsuit, and I'm sad that we get the ugly racing jumpsuits. Like, why? Thank you so much to my members. Don't worry, guys. If we were in a death race, I would let you guys drive, not me. You can drive. That's probably the best decision for everybody. Thank you so much as well to everybody for watching. Thank you for every view, like, comment, subscribe. I appreciate it very much. It helps me out a lot. Have a wonderful day out there, and I will see you again in the next one. Goodbye.